Welcome to Knitting and Reading. I invite you to settle into a comfortable place to enjoy watching and listening. Today's episode is part 2 in the series of readings from a book called The Woman and the Car, written by Dorothy Levitt in London in 1909. I will read chapters 2, 3, and 4. These chapters include information about how to dress for motoring in a car, how the mechanism of a car works, and how to drive a car. Chapter 2. The all-important question of dress, which includes the topics: the all-important question of dress, masks and goggles are usually unnecessary, nothing like leather is a false cry, the best headgear, a neck muffler is of the greatest importance, beware of rings and fluffy things, the question of the overall, what the secret drawer should contain, hints about all garments, suggestion anent carrying a revolver. An all-important question is dress. Automobilists are nowadays more careful in the choice of their attire, but there are still a goodly number who seem to imagine it is impossible to look anything but hideous when in an automobile. On a closed-in car, limousine, or landaulet, any kind of attire is permissible, as the conditions are precisely the same as being driven in a carriage. But with an open car, neatness and comfort are essential. When racing, or when in countries where speed is not looked upon with such horror as in England, on the long, straight, seemingly never-ending military roads of France, one can travel at a speed that makes goggles or masks a necessity. But for motoring under ordinary conditions, there is no reason why one should wear them. It might be borne in mind that I am writing this book for the woman who is desirous of being her own driver and owning her car. Yet perhaps my advice will be applicable to the whole sex. I average about 400 miles per week, in all conditions of weather, all sorts of cars, and all sorts of places, and therefore speak from experience, in many instances dearly bought. Now, as to ordinary garments, dress for the season of the year exactly as you would if you were not going motoring. I would advise shoes rather than boots, as they give greater freedom to the ankles and do not tend to impede the circulation, as a fairly tight-laced or buttoned boot would do, but this is a matter of individual taste. In winter time, it is advisable to wear high gaiters, have them specially made almost up to the knee. As regards a frock, the plain tailor-made with a shirt-blouse of linen, silk, or vayella is without doubt the most comfortable, and the wearer has the advantage, at the end of a day's run, of appearing trim and neat. Under no circumstances wear lace or fluffy adjuncts to your toilet. If you do, you will regret them before you have driven half a dozen miles. Regarding coats, there is nothing like a thick frieze, homespun or tweed lined with Jaeger or fur. The former has the advantage of being lighter in weight than the latter, and is just as warm and much less expensive. In England, in winter, one can wear a coat of this description right up to the beginning of summer. For summer itself, the ideal coat is of thin cream serge. It retains its freshness and does not crease like alpaca, linen, or silk. The serge looks and feels smarter all the summer. The silk, or alpaca, after its first hard day, begins to look creased and shabby. Do not heed the cry, "Nothing like leather." Leather coats do not wear out gracefully. At first they may be delightful, but when they have been caught in 2 or 3 showers, they begin to have a hard, stiff feeling which is far from comfortable. I have, however, seen very pretty costumes, coats, and skirts made of thin glove kid or suede, but these are luxuries, as they cost from 25 to 30 guineas each. As to headgear, there is no question. The round cap or close-fitting turban of fur are the most comfortable and suitable. Though with the glass screen up, it is possible to wear an ordinary hat with a veil around it. However, if you go in for caps, see that they fit well. There is nothing more uncomfortable than the cap that does not fit. It is a good plan to have caps made to match your costumes. When fixing the cap, pin it securely, and over it put a crepe-de-chine veil of length aplenty. These can be obtained from most of the leading drapers, and it is quite a simple matter to make them yourself with a length of crepe or washing silk. Before tying the veil, twist the ends. This prevents the knot working loose and is very necessary, as the veil, in addition to protecting the hair, helps to keep the hat securely in place. One of the most important articles of wear is a scarf or muffler for the neck, and the manner of wearing it is also important. Fold it, then wind round the throat, beginning at the front, bringing the ends round from the back and fold over in front. See that the throat is covered closely and not too loosely. Wearing this properly will save you all manner of colds, sore throats, and kindred sufferings. Regarding gloves, never wear woolen gloves, as wool slips on the smooth surface of the steering wheel and prevents one getting a firm grip. Gloves made of good, soft kid, fur-lined without a fastening and made with just a thumb are the ideal gloves for winter driving. It is not advisable to wear rings. If you do not want to leave them at home or in a hotel, but want to wear them when you are indoors, during your ride or tour, take them off while on the car and stow them away. Rings, when you are driving yourself, hurt terribly, and also the stones are loosened. Bracelets and bangles are irritating unless secured by a sleeve or glove from working up and down. Indispensable to the motoriste who is going to drive her own car is the overall. This should be made of butcher blue or brown linen to fasten at the back. The same shape as an artist's overall. It should have long sleeves. You can always slip off your coat and put on the overall in a moment, and it is necessary if you have anything to do in the car. Remember, it is better to get grease spots on your washable overall than on your coat or clothes. While there are several little repairs that it would be impossible to remedy if wearing gloves, the majority of work on a car, filling tanks, etc., can be done just as well if one's hands are protected by a pair of wash leather gloves. You will find room for these gloves in the little drawer under the seat of the car. The little drawer is the secret of the dainty motoriste. What you put in it depends on your tastes, but the following articles are what I advise you to have in its recesses: a pair of clean gloves, an extra handkerchief, clean veil, powder puff, unless you despise them, hairpins and ordinary pins, a hand mirror, and some chocolates are very soothing sometimes. It is also advisable to carry a tablet of anti-oil soap. If it has been necessary to use bare hands for a repair, you will nearly always find some grease on your hands, and this it is impossible to remove with ordinary soap. Of course, it is possible to remove it with a little petrol, but I have found that petrol roughens the skin and that the anti-oil soap is much better. The mirror should be fairly large to be really useful, and it is better to have one with a handle to it. Just before starting, take the glass out of the little drawer and put it into the little flap pocket of the car. You will find it useful to have it handy, not strictly for personal use, but to occasionally hold up to see what is behind you. Sometimes you will wonder if you heard a car behind you, and while the necessity or inclination to look round is rare, you can, with the mirror, see in a flash what is in the rear without losing your forward way, and without releasing your right-hand grip of the steering wheel. If you are going to drive alone in the highways and byways, it might be advisable to carry a small revolver. I have an automatic Colt and find it very easy to handle as there is practically no recoil, a great consideration to a woman. While I have never had occasion to use it on the road, though I may add I practice continually at range to keep my eye and hand in, it is nevertheless a comfort to know that, should the occasion arise, I have the means of defending myself. If you are driving alone, a dog is great company. The majority of dogs like motors and soon get into the habit of curling up on the seat by your side, under your coat. Chapter 3. The Mechanism of the Car, which includes, in which a practical introduction to the car is given with the simple explanations of the details of the machinery, the importance of lubrication, the testing of the brakes, the 6 levers and their various functions, the electric battery. Quote, "Be sure you are right, then go ahead," unquote. This good old motto is just the thing to remember when one is going in for motoring. Remember, I am discussing the woman who drives her own car and does all those things that ordinarily a chauffeur would have to do. I am constantly asked by some astonished people, "Do you really understand all the horrid machinery of a motor, and could you mend it if it broke down?" But it really is not a very difficult matter. The details of the engine may sound complicated and may look horrid, but an engine is easily mastered. A few hours of proper diligence, provided you are determined to learn, and you know all that you have to know. Again, I must remind you that I am discussing the single-cylinder car, which is by far the simplest for a woman to drive and attend to alone. I have made it a rule never to allow anyone to drive my own little car, and this is a rule that everyone will find useful. All cars have their individual idiosyncrasies, and if you alone drive, you get to understand every sound. But if you allow anyone to drive, you are ignorant of what strain the car has been put to. As a matter of fact, a strange hand on the wheel and levers seems to put the car out of tune. Before starting out for a ride, your first duty is to see that the petrol tank is full. It is unpleasant to be stranded on the road, miles from anywhere, minus petrol. The petrol tank is, in many instances, under the seat. Lift the cushions, unscrew the cap, and peep in. If it is dark, it will be necessary to hold a piece of stick in to see how much petrol there is. But when there is occasion to do this, be very careful that there is no dirt on the stick, or a choked petrol pipe or carburetor will result. The slightest atom of dirt in the petrol will cause trouble. If you are going for a very long run, it is a wise plan to take an extra can with you. It is perhaps unnecessary for me to warn you not to take a light near the petrol tank while it is being filled up. Many cars have been wrecked through carelessness in this direction. Remember, it is not actually the petrol that catches a light, but the vapor that arises from it. If your petrol tank runs dry, there is no danger. The car will simply come to a standstill. The chamber in which the petrol and air mix and vaporize is called the carburetor, from which the vapor is carried to the cylinder head by means of a pipe, and is there exploded by the tiny electric spark from the sparking plug, the explosion forcing down the piston and causing the crankshaft to revolve. Having examined your petrol supply, being sure to replace the screw quite tightly, your next duty is to see that the water tank is full. This tank is situated behind the engine, close to the dashboard. Unscrew the top, and if you cannot see without uncomfortably bending over, take a twig or stick and poke it in, and the wet portion will tell you how much water there is. Though on some cars there is, affixed to the screw tops of both the petrol and water tanks, a metal rod which shows the amount of petrol or water in the tank. When you are refilling the water tank, you can tell by the overflow when the tank is full. There is a special outlet so as to prevent the surplus from flowing over the top of the engine. Be sure to screw the top of the tank on again. The next for examination is the oil tank. This supplies the oil to lubricate the engine and gears. There are several different types of lubricators, force or drip feed, according to the type of car. It is necessary to lift the bonnet to refill the oil tank. The bonnet is the metal covering to the engine. When the bonnet is lifted, metal supports will be found each side to hold it up. It is important that you have plenty of oil, for it is the lubrication that keeps your machinery working trim. Without oil, your engine and gears would overheat and probably seize. The lubricating oil is forced by a small hand pump to all the different parts of the engine and gears requiring it. With the car illustrated, it is necessary to pump a charge of oil into the engine about every 20 miles. This is an easy matter, and it is not necessary to stop the car to do it. Before starting out each day, you should allow the used oil to run out of the base chamber. This is done by lifting a small rod you will find on the left-hand side of the commutator. If you pull this up, it releases the oil, which you will see running out. When it is all out, do not forget to press the rod into place again, as failure to do this would mean serious trouble, as the fresh oil, when pumped into the engine, would simply run right through onto the ground. After this stale oil has been released, 2 charges should be pumped into the engine before starting. This is done by turning the pointer on the pump handle to reservoir, then pull up slowly, turn the pointer to motor, and press gently down. To lubricate the gear, fill from reservoir as before, turn the pointer to vitesse, and press down in the same manner. Apart from filling the various grease caps occasionally on the steering and etc., and greasing the wheel bearings, this is all that is necessary in the way of lubrication. The wheels, however, only require greasing about every 400 miles. Your next duty would be to test the brake. Get into the habit of doing this every time you go out. It is no trouble to run the car a few yards to ascertain whether the brakes grip or not. If all motorists, no matter how expert, were to spend a few moments in taking this precaution, there would undoubtedly be fewer accidents. We often read that the steering gear went wrong, but I am right in saying that, in many cases, the accidents are caused by the failure of the brakes when applied suddenly on an emergency. The brakes may be in satisfactory condition when you lock up the car after a day's run, but when the car is stationary, there is the slight possibility of a little oil dripping onto them during the night, rendering them practically useless. If there is oil on the brakes, however, it can easily be burnt off by running the car a little way and applying the brakes several times. The friction will gradually burn it off. The brakes sometimes slacken and need adjustment, an easy operation. Types of brakes may vary slightly with different types of cars. On my single-cylinder car, the brake is very simple. To adjust, you will find a small handle underneath the frame towards the back of the car on the off side. Half a turn one way or the other if the brake is too slack or too fierce usually suffices. It can be adjusted one way or the other in about a second or two. We now come to the various levers and their different functions. There are 6 levers: the change speed or gear lever on the left-hand side of the steering column under the steering wheel, the ignition lever and the air lever, both to be found under the steering wheel on the right-hand side of the steering column, the hand throttle underneath the steering wheel, in center of column on a small ratchet, the hand brake lever, and the first speed lever. In this chapter, I shall only deal with the first 4. It is the gear lever that sets the gear in motion, practically puts the muscles of your car into play. It is imperative that it be in neutral or central position when starting the engine or when applying either the hand or foot brake. This gear lever, when in neutral position, disconnects the engine and gear, thereby allowing the road wheels to be brought to a standstill. When first learning to drive, there is a tendency to suddenly apply the brake without bringing the gear lever into neutral position. Consequently, a great strain is put upon the entire mechanism as rival forces are brought into play. Viz., while the engine is pulling and through the driving shaft turning the gears and propelling the wheels, the action of the brake is to make the back wheel stationary. As an example, the shock on the mechanism in the event of this happening can be compared to taking a watch and banging it on the ground. With regard to the other levers, always be quite sure that the ignition top lever is retarded and that the air lever is in correct position. It is impossible to exactly give the correct position for these, as it is a matter of adjustment and liable to slightly vary with different cars. However, when once you have found the correct position, it is impossible to get it wrong. The next thing to do is to switch on the electric current. The car carries a battery on the dashboard where there is also the coil. As it is possible to run 2,000 or 3,000 miles on one battery, the replacing is not an expensive item. The cost of a new battery is 15 shillings 9 pence. The switch is on the coil and the current is set in motion by moving the switch from A to M. Having done all these things, you are ready to start up the engine and after that, drive. It has taken a long time to explain the preliminary things you should do before starting off on a run, and the non-motoriste, and even perhaps the intending motoriste, will say, "If I have to do all those troublesome things, it will take up all my time, so I think I had better have a chauffeur." But let me assure you that while it has taken some little time to explain these things in the plainest language possible, it will take you but a few minutes to carry them out. Chapter 4, How to Drive, which includes the sections starting the engine, how to hold the steering wheel, various speeds and gears, how to start the car, the art of throttling, the use of foot pedals, changing speed, how to climb hills, running downhill and on the level, how to use brakes, skidding, driving backwards. A quotation. "Fire in the heart of me, moving and chattering, youth in each part of me, slender and strong. Light and tremendous, I bear you along." These lines, I feel sure, appeal to every motoriste as they exactly describe the little car in motion. Starting one's engine is not the nicest thing about motoring when a woman is acting as her own driver and mechanician. But with the little cars, no strength is required. It is only the big cars that need a swelling of muscle. There is a great knack in starting an engine, but this, once overcome, ceases to be hard work. In front of the car you will notice a handle. Push it inwards until you feel it fit into a notch. Then pull it up sharply, releasing your hold of the handle the moment you feel you have pulled it over the resisting compression point. Unless starting a car fitted with magneto-ignition, on no account press down the handle. Always pull it upwards, smartly and sharply. If it is pressed down, the possibility of a backfire is greater, and a broken arm may result. This, however, is not a common occurrence and is one that is brought about entirely through carelessness on the part of the would-be driver. If the car has not been used for some hours, it will sometimes be necessary to turn the starting handle 2 or 3 times. Speaking from my own experience, 3 times is the maximum. It will usually start on the second turn. Of course, in the winter it will take 2 or 3 turns, as the petrol freezes and takes longer to vaporize. The moment the engine is running, you can get in the car and start driving. Hold the steering wheel with both hands in the manner and position in which it is most comfortable to yourself. Keep a firm hold of it all the time and do not get into the habit of driving with one hand on the wheel. Use both except when it is necessary to use either for changing speed and etc. Advance the ignition lever forward and give more air by pulling back the air lever. When you have tried the car once or twice, you will easily be able to gauge the distance these various levers should be moved. Remember, the faster the engine runs, the more air she will take, though when climbing a hill it is necessary to drive on a richer mix, less air, with the regular supply of petrol and cut off the air inlet almost entirely. You will soon understand the different sounds of the engine and their prevention or cure. When the car is stationary and the engine is running, always endeavor to run it as quietly as possible. It is sometimes annoying to people to have the noise of an automobile outside their door, and no good can accrue by allowing the engine to run on unchecked. Underneath the steering wheel, on the steering column, you will notice the throttle lever, mentioned in the preceding chapter. Its function is to regulate the mixture in the carburetor. When you wish the engine to run very quietly and slowly, you move this little lever from right to left. When starting to drive again, do not omit releasing the throttle, otherwise the engine may stop owing to insufficiency of gas. Your next move is to take off the side brake. You will find this lever on the right-hand side of the car. Now you are absolutely ready to start. Always remember that a car should receive careful treatment, so therefore do not attempt to move anything by jerking it roughly. Take everything very quietly. You will notice two pedals on the left and right respectively of the steering column, on the floor. The left-hand pedal acts as a throttle, shutting off gas, in exactly the same manner as the hand throttle explained above. That is, when it is pressed down halfway, and the throttling process acts according to the amount of pressure put on the pedal. If it is pressed down still further, it acts as a brake. This foot throttle and foot brake are more frequently used than the hand throttle and hand brake. The small pedal on the right-hand side of the steering column is brought into service when first or lowest speed is required. Thus, to start the car, you press down this pedal as far as it will go, at the same time pressing lightly on the throttle, left-hand pedal, and take hold of the change speed or gear lever and push it as far forward as it will go, at the same time releasing the left-hand pedal and keeping down the one on the right. You are now traveling on first speed. You will soon tell when this speed has reached its maximum power, as the engine will be running very fast. It will then be time to change to second speed. This is done by releasing the right-hand pedal, throttle slightly with the left foot, and bring the gear lever towards you as far as it will go, at the same time slowly lifting your foot off the throttle. You will now find the car moving much faster and will be able to tell, as in the former instance, when the maximum speed is obtained. When you hear the engine beginning to race, run very fast, slightly throttle again and push the gear lever into third speed, away from you, the same position as for first, though of course in this instance it is unnecessary to touch the right-hand pedal, which you must remember is only used for the lowest speed. You are now on third or top gear and will find that unless the country is very hilly, you will usually be able to keep the car running on this gear for a long time, varying the speeds from 10 to 28 miles an hour by deftly manipulating the ignition, air, and throttle. Changing speed on the car illustrated is an easy task, and that is why I have taken the de Dion car as an object lesson. With the majority of cars, there is a deal of arm work necessary, and in many cases not a little strain, this strain very often counteracting the benefits otherwise derived from the driving. In changing speed, always remember to throttle slightly, whether in changing from first or second to top, or in slackening speed from top to second or first. Never change from first to top speed or from top to first without using the intermediate speed. The first speed on these little cars is from 0 to 9 miles an hour, the second from 9 to 18, and the top from 18 to 28. I should advise you to get thoroughly used to the steering while on second speed and first drive very slowly. Do not expect to be able to control the car in a few minutes. Take your time and get in sympathy with your motor as you would the horses you drive or ride. Gain confidence slowly. Once you have confidence in yourself, the battle is nearly won. Bear in mind that when riding or driving a horse, it is only partly under your control. As it has a brain and will of its own, it can bolt if it wishes to. But with a motor car, you rely upon yourself alone. You are master, or should I say mistress, of the situation. When it is necessary to drive backwards, push forward the small lever you will find at the side by the handbrake, push the change speed lever forward, same position as for top speed, and steer exactly the reverse way to what you would do if you were going forward. This will no doubt prove awkward at first and will necessitate a little practice, but when once mastered, you will find it equally easy to steer the car either in a backward or forward direction. When running on any speed, if you allow the car to gain impetus and then put the change speed lever in neutral position, the car will travel on in the same manner as a freewheel bicycle, the action of the gear being neutral, temporarily disconnecting the engine and gear. If you see an obstacle in the road, do not go up to it at full speed and suddenly put on the brake. The sudden application of the brake will hasten the end of the life of your tires, and if you are not driving on non-skid tires, a bad accident may be the result if the road is at all wet. Of course, occasion may sometimes arise whereby it is absolutely necessary to apply the brakes very suddenly. For instance, if a car makes its appearance from a side turning that perhaps you had not noticed, or an individual or dog attempts to cross the road very few yards in front of your car. But in cases of this kind, you must rely on your own judgment. You will soon understand how far the car will run with a given impetus and learn to use the brakes gently and sparingly. Never get into the habit of using only one brake. It is more convenient for the use of the foot brake, but if you do not sometimes use the hand brake, when an emergency arises, you will find yourself looking for the handbrake instead of your hand instinctively going out to it in the fraction of a second. In traveling uphill, run as far as possible at top speed, meanwhile listening to the throb of the engine. When the top speed drops to about the maximum speed of the second, it is time to change back to second, but do not allow the engine to run too slowly before changing, otherwise it will not pick up and it will be a great strain on it. If the hill is a very steep one, it may be necessary to change to first. There is always a correct moment for changing speed, both on the level and on hills, but this is a thing that can only come with practice. If you have a long decline to negotiate, turn the switch off so that the engine is not running, allowing the car to roll down on its own impetus, controlling with the brakes. But remember, on the car slowing down after passing the foot of the hill, to put the top gear in and switch on again, otherwise the engine may stop. If you are driving in a very hilly or mountainous country, you must give the engine a charge of oil more frequently than every 20 miles on account of its having to be on low gear, when the engine runs much faster and is liable to get overheated. And if it does become overheated, you will soon notice a nasty knock, regarding which I will explain in a later chapter on troubles. Today's reading is finished. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.